Hi everybody, I'm going to talk to you about the book Thrawn. I just finished this recently and I've been preparing to do this book review. I want to start off, I'm really not going to talk about spoilers, but there may be some minor spoilers because I might mention some of the characters' names and just the basis for some of these characters, but I'm not going to get into any real plot details. So, I don't know if you consider that a spoiler. I want to give that a warning, but I'm going to be basically talking about who is in the book and a little bit about the time frame of the book. I'm going to kind of talk about the book without talking what happens in the book. So I'm not really going to keep it spoilery, but if you don't want to know anything at all, then I just want to give you that warning. So here, I want to start off by saying I think this is an amazing book. It's so good, and it really feels like a breath of fresh air breathed into Star Wars books, because I read just about all of the Star Wars books. I haven't barely started Twilight Company. That one kind of slipped through the cracks. So I think I've got that, and then the one with Ventress. I haven't read that one yet. But other than that, I'm up to speed on all of the new canon books. And a lot of them, they felt very hit or miss for a while, and I've been kind of discouraged. And I think the bar has been set pretty low. There are amazing books out there like Lost Stars, which remind you that, oh my gosh, there's great writers out there writing great Star Wars books. But then you also have books like Aftermath, which make you feel terrible after you read them, or while you're reading them. And so, it's great to get a book like this that's so incredibly good, not just as a Star Wars book, but as a book that just makes me feel very, very, very happy for the future. And then also the fact that if Timothy Zahn does want to make more of these books, I'd say, shut up and take my money. I will buy everything you make from this day forward. I don't care. So let's talk about this book a little bit. First off, I want to talk about the way it's written, which is different than most of the other Star Wars books that I've read, and different than a lot of other books. In that, Thrawn there's a little bit of first person in here, and it's not a bad thing. It's kind of at the beginning of each chapter, Thrawn will give you a quote or talk a little bit about, in a narrative perspective, about something that's going to happen. And usually it's not talking about the specific events, but more about the mindset, or kind of give you some kind of tale about something that's going to happen. And it kind of frames the entire chapter, which is very, very nice. And I also want to start off and say that I did this book on Audible. I do a little bit more on Audible than in physical books lately. On top of that, this is also going to be an Audible review. Mark Thompson is the greatest Audible book reader on the planet. And so his depiction of Thrawn has changed from Heir to the Empire. I have done the Heir to the Empire with Mark Thompson also, and he's amazing. But his version of Thrawn now very closely resembles the Rebels, the Lars Mikkelsen depiction of Thrawn, and so it's very good to have it all, closer to recent memory, and it just keeps it, it makes it feel more canon. Well, it is canon, but it makes it feel more canon also. There's a little bit of that narration with the slight accent on Thrawn, and it's fantastic. But there's also a little bit of first person from Thrawn's own perspective as he's reading people. So he might size somebody up, and he might say to himself, "Oh, her hands are tense, her jaw is very tense, her pupils dilate," or whatever, and it shows basically how he's reading people, and it kind of takes you into the mind of Thrawn. And this book kind of helps explain how he knows what he knows and how he comes to the explanations that he comes to. A lot of people that I've talked to before this book had even come out, some people who had early copies, said this was going to be very much like a Sherlock Holmes type of book, and it definitely feels similar. I would say that's probably an inspiration, although it's not not a carbon copy or anything. But there's definitely, I would say, the Benedict Cumberbatch version of Sherlock Holmes. After watching it on the BBC, the show Sherlock, I get the feeling that Benedict Cumberbatch could play a fantastic Thrawn if he had to. So if you haven't ever seen that show, that's kind of how this Thrawn feels, and that he's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The time frame of this book is pretty interesting because it takes us for several years. It starts off in the Empire still using Venator class Star Destroyers and V-Wings, and it takes you through this whole all the way up until Rebels. So it's very, it very much is complete. It doesn't really leave a whole lot of gaps in there, although it is accelerated because it obviously didn't take me years and years to finish this book. But it's nice seeing all the different ships that it shows and kind of makes official as well, like the Imperial Raider, which is very nice. Although that's also and the Imperial Raider Corvette. If you're not familiar with this ship, it's in both X-Wing and Armada, a lot of tabletop games, but it's also going to be in Battlefront 2. So get familiar with that ship because it's kind of the Imperial's answer to this Corellian Corvette. It's approximately the same size, approximately the same capabilities, and that's a good reference point. But there's also Gazantes and of course your Imperial Star Destroyers and other ships. So a lot of different ships. If you're into that, there's a lot, and it's just nice to see the Raider get canonized. Thrawn's just a great character in this book, and it takes you through he has a progression as well. He just doesn't start out being perfect, although he does start out extremely intelligent, but he's got challenges that he has to face, and they're political challenges. He doesn't know social graces. He doesn't know sarcasm, and he has to learn all of that, and he does that through the character Eli Vanto. Now, Eli Vanto, if Thrawn, you've probably heard this before, but if Thrawn is Sherlock Holmes, then Eli Vanto is his Watson, his John Watson. And Eli Vanto provides a great point for you to frame Thrawn and compare him. And it's a good plot device, too, without feeling contrived, because it allows him to explain something, a term of slang, or, no, that they were being sarcastic when they said, oh, nothing can go wrong, they meant, they hope something goes wrong, or something like that. That's not a direct quote from the book. I'm just making things up to kind of give you an example. Like I said, no spoilers. But Eli Vanto's a really good character as well, and they both kind of also suffer from similar challenges, so they're coming from the same place in that racism is also, and it's not just pure racism, but it's also culturalism in that society does not like Thrawn because he's an alien, and society does not like Eli Vanto, at least inner core world society, because Eli Vanto is kind of like a cowboy hick type person, pardon the word, but he's from wild space. So he's got, and in the narration, this is another great thing about Audible, is that he's got like a southern draw to him. I mean, he's a great person, but nobody gives him a chance because he has his accent. He's from wild space. He's not, there's a very much of like a caste system in the Empire, and they kind of regard people from wild space the same as they regard aliens, in that there's no official policy. It very much mirrors a lot of racism in America through like maybe the 1960s, in that it wasn't officially, you're not officially allowed to be racist, but unofficially everybody's racist, and it covers that very well, and Eli Vanto provides a really good match for Thrawn to kind of explore that. And now the book isn't all about that, but that is certainly something that is a part of it, because it wouldn't be good to have a character that's just Superman, that is just perfect, and from the very, very beginning there have to be challenges for them. So since I'm talking about Eli Vanto, let's talk about some of the other characters. Wolf Yularen is in this book a pretty good amount. You get some pretty good insight into his character. I won't go into it too much, but it's nice. It's nice seeing him. There is a villain by the name of Night Swan that is similar to Sherlock Holmes again. That is kind of like Thrawn's Moriarty, like his arch nemesis, and he's very, very smart as well, and he's written very, very, very well, and it's just great to see a battle of wits happen at this very, very high level and have it all outlined for you, so you don't have to draw your own conclusions. It's just the way everything is written, because of the how smart Thrawn is and how smart Night Swan is. Even when there's something going on that's just kind of like I don't want to say boring chapter, because I don't think there were any boring chapters, but even before you get to like maybe the climax of the book, even in the earlier chapters, every even minor situation that Thrawn has to deal with is written so well that it's just a marvelous read. This is a book I would read many times. It's fantastically written. If I had to say one negative thing about this book, and this isn't really negative, but if I had to, I would say the involvement of Orinda Price, or otherwise known as Governor Price from Star Wars Rebels. She's very much a part of this book, and it's almost like an origin story for her as well. She's not as involved, she's not featured as much as Thrawn, but she's featured more than I would like. And it's not that I have anything against her, she's well written as well. But the problem is, compared to Thrawn, there is no comparison. She pales in comparison to Thrawn. She's still a good character, and she's still a powerful character, and you watch her character development, and you can relate to her, and you can sympathize with her, but I didn't want to as much. I found myself on the chapters that were around Governor Price. I was more interested in when that chapter was going to end so I could get back to Thrawn. And maybe, that's not much of a criticism because they weren't terrible. And eventually, and there was a point to having it because all of her story does influence the overall story of the book. So it wasn't her chapters aren't garbage or throwaway chapters at all. They're there for a purpose. And also, it leads into Rebels, too. Like I said, this book takes you all the way up to Star Wars Rebels. So that much is good. She may be the weak link, but that's not really that weak. She's still got good chapters. So that's it. I'm over-explaining why, I'm saying this it's not a bad thing. She's fine. But compared to the mountains, this one nice mountain that's not as tall as the other mountains looks small by comparison. So that's the only negative criticism I might say. And then the fact that the book had to end. That was also a negative criticism. If you are a big fan of the Empire, I think you're going to love this book because it definitely puts the Empire in a positive light without making it feel like complete Imperial propaganda. I mean, sure, the Emperor is a bad dude, but the Empire itself is keeping law and order, and so it's definitely from that perspective, as you might have guessed. A book about Thrawn is going to be from the Empire's perspective, but you'll find yourself rooting for Thrawn if you don't root for him already. He's already like one of the best characters ever, and he's definitely one of my favorites. I think this is the best Star Wars book. As far as compared to other books, there are a lot, like I said, a lot of them are hit or miss, but out of the cream that rises to the top, Lost Stars is a great book as well. I'm putting this one above Lost Stars, specifically because Thrawn is, I'm going to go out and say he's probably my favorite character, at least right now. Definitely my favorite Imperial. Thrawn is number one. And while Lost Stars was an amazing story, an amazing book, and they're really close. Like, Lost Stars was the best book for a long time, but now Thrawn's here. Now we have two really, really great books. And there are some other good books, too. If I had to rank them, I would say first Thrawn, then Lost Stars, and then we kind of go down a little bit to, like, maybe Bloodline, and maybe the third Aftermath book. Because, like I said, Aftermath was really, really bad, but it's because it was a trilogy. As it went on, they started to get better. And by the third one, I actually enjoyed the book. But there's a big jump in quality when you get to Thrawn and Lost Stars to the other books. So huge jump in quality there. But Thrawn is that good that that's why I say it is a breath of fresh air for Star Wars books. It is a breath of fresh air for books in general, because it's not just one of the best Star Wars books I've read. It's one of the best books I've read, at least in the last 2 years. So it's up there, and I hope you enjoy it. This was specifically for an Audible version of it reviewed, so it was enhanced by the miracle of Mark Thompson, who is fantastic, and I hope you enjoy the book. And if you want to find out, if you want to hear me talk spoilers, I'm going to put a link to that at the end here, so you can see the what I think might be happening after this book. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day.